Chapter 11, Part 4. Ever ambitious for greater and greater success and ever in need of more and more money, Bernhardt decided to move into a theater that had a larger audience capacity. The Théâtre des Nations in the Place du Châtelet was available, and she signed a 25-year lease on it. She was 55 at the time and would have been 80 when the lease would expire. No doubt she was confident of renewing it at such a date, going on the theory that a bigger auditorium was kinder to an aging face. Her first move was to christen the place the Theater Sarah Bernhardt, a title that was to be changed back to its original one during the Second World War occupation, when Nazi officials learned that the actress had been half Jewish. It is running to this day, again under her name. A great barn of a house about the size of the New York Winter Garden. In this theater from 1899 to 1915, Sarah was to appear in 40 different roles, 25 of which were new creations. The building, when she took it over, was shockingly run down, and she ordered it completely renovated, needless to say at colossal expense. The results were handsome in the extreme, and for that day rather startling. Hitherto traditional theater decor had been of the red plush and gilt Cupid school. The theater, Sarah Bernhardt, was elegant, in yellow velvet hangings and brocade paneling, also yellow, contrasting with ivory white woodwork. In the spacious foyer hung life-size portraits by Claren, Abema, and that genius of the decorative poster, Mucha, of Bernhardt as Phaedra, Theodora, Lorenzaccio, and Princess Lontaine. Her personal backstage quarters consisted of a 5-room suite. Up a short flight of steps, a 20-foot-long vestibule led into a salon with yellow satin hangings. After the success of Les Aiglons, the decor was of the Empire period. According to Maurice Rostand, it was Empire augmented by Lalique. Beyond an ornate marble mantelpiece, a fire burned all winter and much of the summer. Equally overheated was the star's dressing room, which had cupboards spacious enough to hold 50 costumes, a vast makeup table with an 8-paneled mirror, a directoire, cheval glass, and an ornamental wash basin. An adjoining bathroom contained a huge tub, which was usually filled with the overflow of the flowers she was constantly receiving. A winding staircase led down to a dining room. It, too, was elegantly furnished and had a table which could accommodate 12 guests. Adjoining this was a small but fully equipped kitchen. It was in this dining room that she would receive the crowds that swarmed behind stage after every final curtain. Although before a performance she would allow only special intimate friends to stop by her dressing room between acts. If she were not making a costume change, she'd admit a few callers, for she was always available to her public. Several times a week and every Sunday between the matinees and evening performances, she had friends in for a meal in her private dining room. Sacha Guitry, in his enchanting book, If Memory Serves, recalls how, as a small boy, he'd be taken before every Sunday matinee to kiss Madame Sarah in her impressive dressing room, torrid as a hothouse and banked with masses of flowers, gasping their last as she sat waiting for her cue. Or rather, as she sat waiting for the call boy to knock on her door, saying, "Madame, it will be 8 o'clock when it suits you." Be it to her professional integrity, she was never late. Edmond Rostand's son Maurice also wrote of his small boyhood visits to the famous loge. The Rostands were among the privileged few who had permission to see her prior to a performance. The first time he was taken there by his father, the star was in the process of making up rather frantically. To his eyes, she seemed, he says, to have no age unless that of the fairies, both astonishingly old and astonishingly young. She seemed to have come down through the ages, yet she'd go out into childish peals of laughter. Various maids bustled about, and she'd give them important orders in the manner of imitating an enraged lioness. But these scenes had such a theatrical, such a harmonious, and such a premeditated quality, they could have frightened nobody. On the contrary, one was tempted to the end to applaud as over the dizzy act of an acrobat. One of her mates was called Dominga. She looked like a corsair in female garb, and she frightened me badly when she'd kiss me with her bristling mustache. It was in the Theatre Sir Bernhardt that Edmond Rostand first read aloud the script of L'Aiglon. The poet-playwright had first come into the actress's life at the Renaissance, when she produced his Princess Lointain, a dreamy fantasy in which she played that faraway princess, crowned with silver lilies, sumptuous and sad like one of Swinburne's early poems. Rostand, only 27 at the time, was by no means unknown. His inconsequential but charming little play, Les Romanesques, had already been a success at the Française. La Princesse Lointain was not so lucky, and Bernhardt lost 200,000 francs. But that didn't bother her. She made it all back triple-fold with a revival of La Dame. Moreover, through this venture she had founded a deep and tender attachment to this gifted young writer, 24 years her junior. Rostand, who was born in Marseille, had all the fire and panache of the South, coupled with the elegance of a grand seigneur. Handsome, rapier slim, he was an impeccably tailored romantic, as well-groomed as his plays. Sacha Guitry said that his youthful success, his delicate face, his charming voice made him as seductive as possible. And after he, with the glorious cooperation of Coqueline, immortalized Cyrano de Bergerac, he became the popular playwright of his day. He had the right receipt for stirring his audience, or reducing them to tears at just the right time, and, his plays being written in graceful verse, were given more credit by the sophisticated elite than they may have deserved. Arthur Symons, who was not so enthusiastic, said that Rostand appealed to the public as a millionaire appeals to society. His morning mail brought letters from budding poets, begging advice.